Now I would like to explain the procurement process for outsourcing. Most companies prefer to outsource their project activities to an external service provider so that they can focus more on what they do best. The process for procurement management are as follows. First, planning procurement management. This process is to establish the purchase and acquisition planning. Second, conducting procurements. This process is to solicit proposals from sellers using request for proposal. Third, controlling procurements. This process involves changes to project requirements and contract administration. Lastly, closing procurements. This process to close the contract. A detailed run chart about the procurement management can be drawn as follows. The chart has two lines which interact with each other, one for the buyer and the other for the seller. A buyer refers to a company which outsources a software product or a project, and a seller refers to a company which develops a software product or conducts a project based on an outsourcing contract. A buyer defines issues, that is, project scope, and then develops a request for information. In turn, a seller submits an answer sheet. The buyer develops a request for proposal based on the submitted RFI. Then the seller develops a proposal document based on the RFP. The buyer evaluates each proposal based on a certain criteria for seller selection. Finally, the buyer selects a seller based on the evaluation results. This is the process serving as a key milestone between a buyer and a seller. First, let's take a look at the process of planning procurements. It is a set of activities to document the decisions made about procurements, to define the method of procurements, and to identify a potential seller. This process of planning procurements includes decision-making on whether a project will be conducted with the in-house resources or outsourced to a third party, what to acquire and how to acquire it, how much is needed and when to acquire it, and the outsourcing contract types. We have already learned how to estimate costs in the cost management section. Now let's take a look at how to make a contract based on estimated costs. First, types of project contracts. The contract types for a project can be divided into fixed price, cost reimbursable, and time and material. A public project specifies that the seller's profit will be no more than 25% of its maximum development costs. However, in case of the lowest cost bid, the seller is more likely to make a loss in a project. That is why the type of a contract matters a lot. Depending on the type of a contract, the buyer and the seller bear different levels of risks regarding cost. Now let's take a close look at each of the types of project contracts. The fixed price contract is one in which a fixed price is defined in the initial stage of a project. A product or a service, which a seller shall provide, must be clearly defined. Second, cost reimbursable contract. This category of contract involves payments to the seller for all legitimate actual costs incurred for completing work, plus a fee representing seller profit. In particular, the cost plus fixed fee contract pays a predetermined fee or profit in addition to all allowable costs for performing the contract work. Third, the time and material contract. It is also known as a man-month contract. The category of contract involves the predetermined unit labor cost per month in software development. However, in case a seller opts for the T&M contract, a buyer would not allow night or weekend overtime. So this category of contract may include a not-to-exceed clause capping the project time. Next, procurement documents. The procurement management plan includes all the documents related to procurements, from the project initiation through the contract closure. First, Key documents that buyers need to prepare for include RFI, RFQ, RFP, and IFB. These terms are frequently used in business, so you need to be well aware of them. An RFI is a type of procurement document whereby the buyer requests a potential seller to provide information related to a product or service. An RFQ is a type of procurement document used to request price quotations from prospective sellers of a product or service. An RFP is a type of procurement document which describes the requirements and constraints defined by the buyer, including requirements for the to-be system, timelines, costs. An IFB is a type of procurement document which is used to invite the potential sellers to a meeting. The following is an example of table of contents frequently used by sellers. You need to take a look at this. As you can see, the table of contents include the outline of proposal, the overall status of sellers, IT areas subject to development, project management areas, support areas, and other. The next is conducting procurements. This is the process of collecting potential sellers, selecting a seller, and awarding a contract to the winning seller. A buyer receives proposals from sellers and listens to the explanations about each proposal at a presentation session. Through this process, the buyer evaluates sellers and select a qualified seller who is deemed to have enough business capabilities. The following chart is a representative example of the seller evaluation criteria. The general category, the first of evaluation areas, is allocated with 20 points. This category evaluates implementation performance, business conditions, technical competencies, and credibility. The planning category evaluates understanding of a project and the project approach. The management category evaluates the management methodology of a project, the organization of a project, and manpower. The support category evaluates a contingency plan, training, and knowledge transfer. Lastly, the corporation and others category evaluates the involvement of professional businesses and mutual cooperation. With regard to the above-mentioned categories, a panel consisting of more than 5 experts evaluate each potential seller. The methods for selecting a final seller are classified into the following 4 types. The weighting system is a method where a range of weighting is given to each of the evaluation items, and the seller getting the highest score wins a bid. The screening system is a method where a minimum requirement or threshold is given to one or more evaluation items, and those meeting the minimum requirements can be eligible for a bid. The independent estimates is a method of estimating the cost for each of the evaluation items within a project in advance. It is also known as should-cost estimates. In other words, this method estimates a desirable level of bid-winning price based on the previous project contract records. Lastly, the expert judgment is a method where experts from different fields, such as technology, law, and finance, make a judgment of the proposals submitted by the sellers. During the course of conducting procurements, the contract must specify that sellers have the obligation to deliver the products, services, and deliverables defined in the agreement, while a buyer has the obligation to make due payments for the sellers. Controlling procurements is the process of managing the procurement relationship, monitoring the implementation of a contract, modifying the contract for the changes as they occur, and controlling those changes. Once the project is closed by contract management, the process of closing procurements is initiated. The project closure can be divided into administrative closure and contract closure. The administrative closure means the official closure of the project and its processes. To that end, all activities and interaction of the project team members and stakeholders and related roles and responsibilities shall be completed. It also involves all activities to preserve the project information available to the organization. The contract closure is the process of confirming whether all deliverables submitted from sellers during the course of a project or its processes are acceptable and paying the balance. The following is the key documents for procurement closure. First, lessons learned. It refers to the lessons learned during the course of a project, including information that can be used for the future project, such as decisions made, project outcomes, issues and risks, and techniques. Close report is a report and a related meeting intended to get an official approval from the customer about the project closure. Post-Mortem Analysis refers to a review meeting to analyze a project following the project closure. Final Individual Performance Appraisal is a performance appraisal document intended to acknowledge the best practices of each team member and to offer a reward. Transition Plan is a plan for the handover of the final outcomes to operation following the project closure. Post-project audit is an external audit report for a project, such as information system audit results. Now, let's take a look at the phase of project evaluation. Even though a project was completed, it does not mean everything is completed. As a lot of human resources and budget are allocated to a project, it is necessary to have a process of evaluating the project after its completion. The following is the list of evaluation criteria intended to capture the value proposition of the information system and users' feedback about the value proposition. The project evaluation criteria generally include return on investment, consistency with management strategy, sales increased, cost saving, user satisfaction, competitive differentiation, recycle, and ease of development. The following chart is a sample of project performance review. This is intended to collect the performance data of each month in terms of the monthly revenue, so that the data can be used for evaluating the investment suitability and discovering improvement opportunities in the project operations. The green bars on the chart represent targeted revenues, and the purple bars, representing actual revenues, show that the revenues exceeded their targets since the second month after the service date. Companies usually carry out multiple projects at the same time, which requires a well-structured management framework. Now, let's take a look at the roles of PMO, a project management office, which manages such multiple projects. The following screen shows the process of project initiation, implementation, and investment evaluation. In the project initiation phase, the corporate decision on the project investment matters most. The next is company-wide project portfolio management. This is what we have learned so far. Lastly, project investment evaluation. The following is a bulletin board system for managing multiple projects of Company T, which features the project timeline, ownership, key milestones. We call such a system Project Management System, or PMS. In other words, this system generally saves and manages project deliverables as well. The following screen shows the management of project issues through a project management system. Some companies use open source software, just like the one on the screen, in order to lower the total cost of ownership. Their goal is the same, to provide project visibility. You just learned about practical management skills so that you can manage a project competitively. I hope what you have learned so far will help you practice your management skill on the field, as well as obtain a PMP certification.